that he had, that she was carrying on without him, that she didn't love him anymore, drove him to murder.
This was her first real relationship, and it was the relationship that killed her.
On the morning of June 29, 2017, Molly McLaren pulled into the car park of a dockside gym in Chatham, Kent. She was 23 years old. She was a university student. She was going to a workout class. Minutes later, she was dead, stabbed 75 times in broad daylight, in front of witnesses, by a man she had already reported to the police. Molly McLaren was born on July 3, 1993. She grew up in Kent, the daughter of Joanne and Douglas McLaren. Friends described her as gentle, warm, and utterly without malice. She had a small circle of close friends. She was the kind of person who remembered your birthday without Facebook reminding her. The kind of person who noticed when you seemed off and would message you at midnight just to check. By 2017, Molly was in her third year of a health and exercise science degree at the University of Kent. She was a regular at her local gym. She tracked her workouts. She ate well. She was building the kind of life that 23-year-olds are supposed to build one step at a time, one good decision after another. What those who knew Molly consistently said was this: she was careful. She was not naive. She was not reckless. She was the friend who told other friends to text when they got home safe. She was the one who noticed red flags. She was the last person you would expect to end up in a story like this. And that is the first thing this case forces us to confront. Molly McLaren did everything she was supposed to do. She recognized danger. She reported it. She documented it, and it did not save her. In late 2016, Molly met a man named Joshua Stimpson online. Stimpson was 25 years old, lived in Kent, and presented himself as a former security guard and aspiring personal trainer. He was charming in the early messages, attentive, the kind of guy who texts good morning and actually means it. They began dating in May 2017. The relationship was brief. It lasted, by most accounts, less than 7 weeks, and almost immediately, Molly began to see a side of Joshua Stimpson that contradicted everything she thought she knew about him. He became possessive. He wanted to know where she was, who she was with, what she was doing. He would show up at places unannounced. He would message her repeatedly if she did not respond quickly enough. The charm that had drawn her in began to curdle into control. By late June 2017, Molly had made a decision. She ended the relationship. It had been roughly 50 days since it began. For most people, a 7-week relationship ends with an awkward text exchange and a period of avoiding each other's social media. For Molly McLaren, it was the beginning of a nightmare that would end her life. What happened next followed a pattern that is now chillingly familiar to anyone who studies domestic homicide. Joshua Stimpson did not accept the breakup. He escalated, immediately. He began stalking Molly. He followed her to her gym. He waited outside her university. He sent her a barrage of messages, some pleading, some threatening, some veering wildly between the two. He posted about her on social media. He created fake accounts to monitor her activity. He made it clear in 100 different ways that he was not going to let her go. Molly did what we are all told to do in situations like this. She documented everything. She took screenshots of the messages. She showed them to her friends. She told her mother. She changed her routines. She stopped going places alone. She tried to make herself harder to find. On June 22, 2017, 1 week before she died, Molly McLaren filed a formal report with Kent Police. She walked into a police station and told them exactly what was happening. She had evidence. She had dates. She had the messages. She told them she was afraid. Kent Police recorded the complaint. They gave her a reference number. They issued Joshua Stimpson with a warning, and then they let him go. No arrest. No charges, no restraining order, no formal protection, just a warning, a conversation, a piece of paper. Stimpson, for his part, responded to the police warning in a way that should have triggered every alarm in the system. He went on Facebook and posted a message that read, and I quote, "Molly McLaren is a psychopath and will pay for her actions against me." He posted it publicly. He named her. He threatened her. Molly saw the post. She was terrified. She told her family. She told her friends. She told the police. Nothing changed. Thursday, June 29th, 2017. It began like any other Thursday in Molly's life. She woke up. She messaged her mother. She was looking forward to the weekend. Her 24th birthday was 5 days away. There had been talk of dinner with friends, a small celebration, nothing elaborate. Just the kind of thing a young woman in her early 20s should be able to enjoy without fear. That morning, Molly drove to the Dockside Outlet Center in Chatham. She was going to a group exercise class at a Pure Gym on the retail park. It was part of her routine. She had been going for months. It was a public place in broad daylight, surrounded by shoppers and staff, and people going about their ordinary lives. Joshua Stimpson knew her routine. He had been tracking it. He knew where she would be and when. At approximately 10:30 in the morning, Stimpson arrived at the Dockside car park. He was carrying 2 knives. He had purchased them specifically for this, 2 kitchen knives bought days earlier. He had planned this. He had prepared for it. He was not snapping. He was not losing control. He was executing. Molly had just finished her workout. She was walking back to her car. She was in the driver's seat of her white Citroen. Stimpson approached the vehicle. He opened the passenger door and got in. What happened in the next few minutes was witnessed by multiple people in the car park. He attacked her with both knives. She tried to fight him off. She tried to sound the car horn. She tried to escape. He stabbed her 75 times. Her injuries were so severe that paramedics later described them as catastrophic. She died at the scene. The attack continued until members of the public intervened. An off-duty police officer and 2 security guards pulled Stimpson away from the car. He did not resist. He did not run. He sat down on the ground and waited, the knives still in his hands. Molly McLaren was pronounced dead at 11:13 a.m. She was 23 years old. Her 24th birthday would have been 5 days later. Joshua Stimpson was arrested at the scene. He was taken to Medway Police Station. During his first interview, he claimed he could not remember what had happened. He said he had experienced a blackout. He said the attack had been triggered by Molly's treatment of him. In his words, she had emotionally abused him. He was, in his own telling, the real victim. The investigation that followed was swift and decisive. Witnesses had seen the attack. The knives were recovered. The car, Molly's white Citroen, was processed as a crime scene. But the most damning evidence did not come from the car park. It came from Stimpson's phone. Kent police recovered his search history. They found that in the days before the murder, Stimpson had searched for information about serial killers. He had researched the most effective way to kill someone with a knife. He had looked up Molly McLaren's name repeatedly, checking her social media, monitoring her movements, cataloging her life. They also found the messages, the threatening Facebook posts, the harassment, the pattern of obsessive contact that had escalated over the preceding weeks, and they found Molly's police report, the one she had filed on June 22nd, the one that had resulted in nothing more than a warning. The Independent Office for Police Conduct would later launch an investigation into Kent Police's handling of Molly's case. That investigation would take months. It would uncover what many already suspected. Molly had been failed. From a forensic and procedural standpoint, the Molly McLaren case is an example of how comprehensive digital evidence can overwhelm even the most rehearsed defense narrative. Stimpson's claim of amnesia, that he had blacked out and could not remember the attack, collapsed under the weight of his own digital footprint. His search history showed premeditation. His messages showed motive. His movements showed planning. A person experiencing a sudden, uncontrollable psychotic break does not research knife effectiveness 3 days earlier. A person acting in the grip of a moment does not buy 2 knives and then wait. The physical evidence was equally damning. The number of stab wounds, 75, is significant in forensic terms. It indicates a sustained, focused assault. It is inconsistent with a loss of control. It is consistent with rage, with intent, with the desire to destroy completely. The forensic pathologist's report would later confirm that many of the wounds were defensive. Molly had tried to protect herself. She had fought. She had lost. The case also exposed what is now widely acknowledged as a systemic failure in the British criminal justice system's response to stalking. The police had the power to arrest Stimpson after Molly's report. They had the evidence to charge him with harassment. They had the warning signs that research consistently identifies as predictors of lethal violence. The threatening social media post alone, "Molly McLaren is a psychopath and will pay for her actions against me," should have triggered an immediate arrest, not another conversation. The psychological profile that emerges from the public record of this case is both deeply disturbing and tragically well documented in domestic homicide research. Joshua Stimpson fits a pattern that criminologists have been describing for decades. The controlling partner whose need for dominance is so absolute that they cannot tolerate rejection. The individual who experiences the end of a relationship not as sadness or loss, but as an existential threat to their self-image. The perpetrator who reframes their own violence as victimhood, who genuinely believes, even as they destroy another human being, that they are the one who has been wronged. Stimpson's post-arrest statements are instructive here. He said Molly had emotionally abused him. He positioned himself as the one who had suffered. This is not unusual. It is, in fact, one of the most common features of intimate partner homicide, what researchers call victim precipitation framing. The killer reconstructs the narrative so that the victim becomes the aggressor, and the murder becomes, in their mind, a response to unbearable provocation. The speed of the escalation is also significant. Molly dated Stimpson for less than 7 weeks. The stalking began almost immediately after she ended the relationship. The murder occurred roughly 2 weeks after the breakup. This compressed timeline suggests a personality structure in which attachment becomes obsession and rejection becomes rage, with almost no intermediate stages. There is also the question of the police response. Kent Police's failure to act on Molly's report is not an isolated incident. Research consistently shows that stalking complaints, particularly those involving intimate partners or ex-partners, are systematically underenforced. Victims are often told to come back when something actually happens. The problem, as Molly's case demonstrates with brutal clarity, is that by the time something actually happens, it is too late. On December 19, 2017, Joshua Stimpson pleaded guilty to murder at Maidstone Crown Court. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years. In her victim impact statement, Molly's mother, Joanne McLaren, said this: "Molly was the brightest light in our lives. She was loved by everyone who met her. She had so much to give. And she was taken from us by a man who refused to take no for an answer." The case prompted a review of how Kent Police handle stalking complaints. A domestic abuse investigation was launched. Recommendations were made. Policies were changed. And none of it brought Molly back. Cases like this remind us of something uncomfortable. We tell women to report their stalkers. We tell them to document the threats. We tell them to go to the police. Molly McLaren did all of those things. She was careful. She was thorough. She was brave. And the system that was supposed to protect her did not. That is the truth at the center of this case. That is the question that remains long after the headlines have faded. What does it take for a stalking complaint to be taken seriously? How many warnings does a system need before it acts? Subscribe to Case Classified for more true crime stories, unsolved mysteries, and real-life horror cases. If this story reached you, if it stayed with you, share it. Leave a comment below. What do you think could have been done differently? What should the police have done the moment they saw that Facebook post? Cases like Molly's are not just tragedies. They are warnings. and the question is whether we are willing to listen. We'll see you in the next one.